quite a while since we've had a little stream. And you might notice at first that it's just me and Aaron right now. We did invite Mike to the show. He's currently raiding, and we'll see if we can pull him out of raiding later on to see if he has any awesome things to say. Welcome back, everyone, to Looking Forward to It. We decided to shorten the title. Formerly it was Please Look Forward to It. And it's been a couple months since we've had a little chat. I'm with Aaron, and we've been playing a lot of Final Fantasy XIV the last week, especially since the new patch, As Goes Light, So Goes Darkness, just hit on Tuesday, and there's a lot of stuff to do. Gosh, it's been quite a while. How many months has it been?
Oh
Like
man,
almost 5?
I think the last time we got together for something like this was like right after expansion. So
Yeah, it must have been right after, but if you're kind of curious, I mean, a lot of us have had like new jobs, new distractions, and so on to kind of keep us away from this, but we want to keep doing a show, and obviously this will be kind of like the first of hopefully many things to come, so as you listen tonight, definitely give us your feedback on future suggestions, like, oh, you could definitely do this instead of this. I love that kind of stuff. That makes us help put out a better show. So, I think what I'll go ahead and do is, if people don't know what patch 3.1 is, it's like a post-content release patch that comes after an expansion, and that adds even more stuff to the game. First thing I want to do is play the trailer that kind of shows you everything that's in this. So it's about 7 minutes long, so I'm not going to put that on and have that play. We're just going to kind of talk over it a little bit while it's in the background. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and cue that up. So Aaron, while I'm getting that queued up, what are your like immediate impressions about 3.1? Like, is it a long time coming? What's been the biggest surprise for you?
I mean, yeah, it has been a long time coming. I don't think anybody expected to wait as long as we have for, you know, the next patch after the expansion, but, you know, considering the development team took time off, which, you know, is understandable considering what they basically had to go through, we had to wait, you know, a little longer than usual to get this update, and I, for the most part, have liked it, despite some of the complaining that I've seen. I think my biggest surprise was probably a tie between the main scenario and then the new dungeons that they added.
So I guess, you know, since there's been a lot of people waiting for this to come out, you know, you could definitely feel it before the patch hit. People were saying, you know, oh, it's just too much time coming, it's been too long, but it's kind of strange because in a lot of other games of this caliber, patches do take quite a bit longer to come out, and from the Final Fantasy XIV perspective, it's like 5 months for a patch. We're kind of spoiled.
Yeah, not only that, we don't have to pay for it, so I mean, can't really complain too much.
So you mentioned, you know, people had positive, people had negative reactions to it. I know that when you look at the patch face value, you don't see a new primal, you don't see like the return of Hildebrand, which is an absolute travesty, oh my god.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I do miss the Hildebrand quest for sure, but there actually is a new primal, sort of.
Sort of.
And that fight is actually really, really fun. I've completed it several times myself since patch came out, and I think it might be one of my favorites.
Well, that's good to hear because, you know, I'm definitely missing that new primal. You know, although patch 2.1, the first one that came after A Realm Reborn, didn't have a new primal technically. It did have Mugglemog, but, I mean, the Mugglemog fight was actually from 1.0. So
yeah,
technically it wasn't new, but...
technically it wasn't new, but we did get the 3 extreme primals, which, you know, were actually pretty challenging at the time, and I think that the new trial that they added this time is very, very similar in regards to like that sort of difficulty for people.
See, I have yet to be in there, but I'm definitely looking forward to watching. I noticed that you had streamed some last night, and I was kind of poking around and seeing, okay, how hard is this exactly? How extreme could this possibly be?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like the main thing about the fight is that they basically threw in every mechanic from every other fight in existence into one fight, and some of those are like all at once. So, but once you learn the rotation and the script and everything, it's really not that bad.
So it's basically like a lot of extreme fights where you go in, you get your ass handed to you, you learn the dance, and then it becomes 1, 2, 3 after that.
Pretty much. Although I would say with this one, if you're not paying attention, then you're probably going to have a really bad time.
Oh boy. Well, I'll definitely have to focus when I try it for sure.
Yeah, you can. It's definitely not a fight where you definitely can't have like healers or tanks slacking off. Otherwise, it's could be a wipe at any time.
So, going by this trailer, like the first big feature that they show off is exploratory missions, which is a new endgame type. And so this is probably going to be the biggest shake-up as far as Final Fantasy XIV's gameplay goes. You've done the diadem and however you say it. You've done a diadem. Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah. We'll have to look that up later. But you've been in there a little bit more than I have. I went in earlier today, and I've been kind of doing a little bit this weekend. I haven't done hard mode, but what exactly are exploratory missions?
Well, basically, you go in there. I mean, you can go in there by yourself, but ideally, you want to go in there with a full party, and you beat up on enemies. And your goal is to spawn these notorious monsters, and every single enemy can potentially drop a chest, but the notorious monsters drop like the really, really good loot, and potentially you could get a piece of loot that's actually better than what you can get in the raid right now. But all of the loot is based on our complete RNG, so you never know what you're going to get.
You know, I kind of had to joke with myself because the way that the loot rules go in there and the way people act, it's definitely setting up 3.1 as the Sky Pirate patch for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I was in there earlier as well, but I was doing normal mode, and there was only one other group in there, and it was actually really difficult. Like, we couldn't actually do any of the harder mobs because we just didn't have enough people. So, I mean, it can be challenging, even though it's mechanically not very difficult, but if there's not enough people, then you're gonna have a hard time. Like, yeah, the one time I did actually do hard mode the other day, but that was with a full alliance of 3 separate groups of 8 people, and things were dying pretty quick. But like, if you don't have at least 2 alliances for hard mode, then it's probably going to be pretty difficult.
Yeah, when I went in there, I went in normal, and there must have been at least 4 or 5 groups focused in a specific area, trying to spawn harder and harder mobs. And we got to the Brachiosaurus, and these meteor drops were just devastating all of us, where we just couldn't get it.
Oh yeah, we spawned one of them earlier today, and we couldn't even beat it because we just didn't have enough people.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. What I like about it is that, although, I'm part of a free company that has a ton of people, it doesn't matter, how many people you have with you. Even if you want to queue solo, all you gotta do is head over to a place in Ishgard and queue up for it, and you'll be able to take any amount of people that qualify. You do have to be certain item level. There's an amount of gear that you'll need to collect before you can queue for exploratory missions, but once you get there, it's pretty accessible, and I feel that this is kind of like another layer to add on an endgame that's lighter as far as maybe accessibility. Difficulty, yeah. I don't know, it remains to be seen. I mean, you could definitely go in there, and if you have a ton of groups that are just on a mob, it's not very difficult, but...
No, definitely not. I think I think the best part about it is you can kind of just go in and not really worry too much about not doing a good job.
Hmm.
At this point, I feel like they really want people to get up to that 210 level, so they're basically handing out free loot, which I think is fine. There's gonna be better stuff in a couple months anyway,
Right.
so.
When the next tier of Alexander comes out.
Right.
So speaking of Alexander, a lot of people, they're a bit, I don't know, I guess people are a bit confused as to why, you're handing out gear of such a high level when you still have Alexander Savage as a goal. But
Well, I honestly, after reading one of the recent interviews that Yoshi had with one of the Japanese outlets where he said that the amount of people who actually cleared Alexander was really, really below their expectations, I'm not surprised with this patch.
it's a very small amount of people. I think maybe several hundred at the very most.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see the amount of people who've actually cleared the last tier, and just the way that everything was designed, it really, I think, burned people out this time, and so a lot of people just don't want to do it. So now that there's these other ways to get similar sort of loot, I think that people are actually more excited to be playing the game again.
Yeah. And I think, if people are able to get really good 210 gear, it's going to help them push through A3 Savage, A4 Savage, and get
Oh,
it done.
definitely. I mean, compared to 1 and 2, 3 and 4 are just, they're on a whole different level, and I think they kind of overestimated what people could do.
Mhm. So, moving on from the exploratory voyages, which is pretty much, I would say it's like the signature piece of this patch, because I feel that this will have like the longest impact on the game going forward.
Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff that you can get in there, like that you can trade gear for, like you can get the grade 5 materials in there, and those especially are going to be important going forward.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how it plays out, because as far as I know, this is kind of the type that they want to continue. They wanted to monitor and see how people react to it and how people use it. And it seems like this could possibly return perhaps for 3 point, what will it be, 3.3 and 3.5 potentially?
Yeah, I was thinking about it actually, and I feel like this is what Hunt should have been from the beginning, maybe? I don't know, something like this at least.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely ways that they can tweak it going forward. If they see people are gearing up too quick, it can always be adjusted, like drop rates and so on.
Right. But at this point, like I said earlier, they want people to catch up in time for, the next tier of gear progression, so.
Yeah. So, speaking of that, like, the next tier, which is going to be the next level of Alexander, in, like, the recent interviews that Yoshi P's done ahead of the patch, he says that, although people have been waiting about 5 months for 3.1, they do want to get back to the schedule that they were on for the 2.x series. So, if you're not familiar with the schedule for the 2.x series patches, they came out roughly between 3.5 to 4 months. And so, since 3.1 has taken 5 months, they want to be able to get back to that sweet spot. I think that they feel that that's the amount of time that they have before things start getting a little bit too, maybe they have metrics to see, what subscriptions are doing. It's hard to say, but I feel that they have set that goal for themselves, that they feel like our content can get us this much. This is how long we should be putting each patch in the limelight.
Yeah,
So-
I think so as well, and I was glad to see that they said that, because I don't think people can wait another 5 months.
And it's very interesting because we also have comments from him earlier in the year saying that, they've already planned like the story for all of the 3.x series patches, and they're already starting work on the expansion already. I believe Yoshida went to talk with Visual Works to already drop like a storyboard for the cinematic for the next expansion. So, I mean, the game isn't going anywhere. It seems like it's definitely holding steady, and it's putting on a great amount of content, which is very reassuring from my perspective, and I'm glad that they're able to keep the ball rolling.
Oh, definitely. I mean, the expansion itself was amazing, so I mean, as long as they can keep up that sort of thing, I think will be good.
So, to diverge away from kind of like the gameplay side of things, Heaven's Word was a very kind of different, more focused story that we saw, after the 2.x series patches and A Realm Reborn story. So, from your perspective, how does 3.1 go forward? Do you feel that it carries the momentum after Heaven's Word?
I think, actually it was a lot shorter than I was expected, so when I got to the end I was kind of disappointed, like, that's it?
Right.
I wanted to see more, but I think that the different sort of hints that they kind of dropped at the end there have left open like so many possibilities on where they could go. And we already know, we have some general idea of what they're going to do, but it's going to be interesting seeing, the return of a certain character and going forward into like Alamigo and seeing what they're going to do with that.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting that you say that, because I'm wondering now, it seemed like this patch, like the new dungeon, like the new content isn't directly linked with any of it. Like, you don't unlock a new dungeon, you don't unlock the new raid through the main story, but, all of it has its own little side story.
Yeah, and well, even though Void Ark wasn't directly tied to, like the Dragon Song War main scenario, I felt like the way that they presented it with like the whole Sky Pirate narrative was actually really cool. Because at first I was like, okay, I have to do these Sky Pirate quests, and then I can unlock Void Ark, but I didn't realize at the time that they were kind of connected. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I definitely got a kick out of this story for Void Ark. I mean, it was definitely kind of a different spin than I was expecting.
Yeah, because with like Crystal Tower, it was like, oh, this was something built by the Alligans, and we want to figure out what they were doing with it. But I think the Sky Pirate thing is a little more exciting and different.
Right. So, an interesting point that Yoshida also brought up in pre-patch interviews is that, for Crystal Tower, we basically ascended 3 different parts of the Crystal Tower. And for the 3.x series patches, it's going to be a bit different. Like, we have Void Ark in 3.1, but 3.3, when that raid comes back, it's going to be perhaps in an entirely different place. Same with 3.5. It's hard to say like where it's going to be next, but there is an overall theme that they're going for here, and I feel that a change of scenery each time would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I did like, what they did with Crystal Tower, at least from Circus Tower and then World of Darkness, like from a visual standpoint, but I do feel like the first tier and the second tier were a little too similar. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see, like, okay, where are we going for 3.3? And, how is this story going to unfold?
Yeah, I mean, it's the fact that they kept Void Ark pretty much secret for as long as they did was pretty impressive, really, because nobody had any idea of what to expect.
Right. So I guess, while we're on Void Ark, have you had a chance to run it at all?
I went in there once by myself the other day.
Yeah, I've actually only had one chance to go in there. We did clear everything. It's an absolutely gorgeous dungeon, and when I say gorgeous, I mean like gorgeous in a disgusting way, because there's a lot of creepy monsters in there.
Yeah, I mean, we did clear it as well. Even though I think we wiped a couple times on the last boss.
Yeah.
But and the first boss as well. Yeah, but it wasn't bad. Like, mechanics-wise, I didn't think it was horrible.
difficulty-wise, do you think it's a step up or a step down from World of Darkness, which was the last raid in the Crystal Sour series?
I actually thought it was pretty much the same. Actually, I thought the last boss was pretty easy compared to like Cloud of Darkness, where people would wipe so often and frustrate me to no end.
Yeah,
but
Cloud of Darkness, I just remember most of the wipes that happened, they would happen so late in the fight too.
oh yes, like people would ignore the the little clouds or whatever, and then she'd get too many stacks, and then we'd wipe, and she'd only have like 10% left or whatever, and then I'd get really upset.
Yeah. So, I guess moving away from the raiding side, the new dungeons, we have St. Mosian's Arboretum, which is a new dungeon that's in the Dravenian hinterlands, and then we have Pharaoh Sirius Hard, which is a dungeon that was first introduced in 2.1. So, have you had a chance to run either of these, and did you have any big impressions from either one?
I did do both of them. I've actually done the Arboretum twice now, maybe 3 times, and I think that one's actually my favorite. Pharos is okay, like, I didn't really have any major feelings on it regardless, but I really like the other one. Like, it's so cool looking, and
Oh yeah.
like the music is so soothing. I just want to go in here.
Yeah, that was my biggest impression with the new dungeon, is just that the amount of, like, the visual diversity that you go through when you go through the different parts of the dungeon, and, I guess I won't spoil things too much, but, it's definitely a looker. Definitely one of the more pretty dungeons. So, I guess, St. Mosian's Arboretum and Pharaoh Sirius Hard, they're the 2 new dungeons for EXDR, or EX Duty Roulette. So, I guess that caught people off guard a little bit, because I guess they had expected Never Reap and Fractal Continuum to perhaps make up 4 dungeons that it would select from.
Yeah, I did see a lot of people complaining about that, but to be honest, I'm actually glad that those 2 are not in there, because
We've done them enough, it feels like
Yeah.
they need a little break. At least until Relic, where I'm sure they'll come.
oh yeah, I'm
quite
sure they'll
back.
be back for that. But if I don't have to do them again for a long time, I'm not going to complain.
Yeah. So, speaking of Relic, although that did not come in patch 3.1, it's not too far away.
No, it's coming in 3.15, which is probably at least a month away. I know they've already found, like, some data hidden away for the Relic, but, nothing, like, super concrete.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of excited to get my Relic started, but is it true? And, I really need a definitive answer, but do you think that we have to sacrifice our Zeta to skip that first step? Because I don't want to give up my Zeta. Like, that took me so long.
I don't know, and I could totally see it, just because it would totally be like a Yoshi P thing to do, but I think it could go either way.
So, some of the impressions that Yoshi P's been giving is that this first step is quite brutal.
Yeah, I saw that, and I have a feeling it's going to be something like another Atma grind, which I am not looking forward to.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Anybody knows my feelings on the whole Atma grind. I was not very happy.
oh yeah, I'm sure a lot of people shared your sentiment about having to grind fates for hours and hours just for one drop.
It was ridiculously soul-crushing.
I was kind of lucky in that regard, where I think it only took me about
Yeah,
24
I remember that,
two or 3 days.
You got yours, like, right away. And, like, by the time you had finished yours, I'd only gotten maybe, like, half. So I was really mad at you, actually.
Yeah, that was actually quite satisfying to get it done so early. But now that it's coming back, it's kind of like I have a mixed feeling of dread and excitement to finally get working on something like that again.
Yeah, I mean, it'll at least keep us busy, I suppose.
Yeah, it's one of those things. You know, a lot of people think, you know, I mean, yeah, it is a grind, and yeah, I mean, I think Relic is a good step to, like, not only breathe some life into older content. Not only are you running older content, but then people who are doing it for the first time, they probably have better cues too, and so that's not bad. Also, I kind of think of Relic kind of like a ship in a bottle. Like you add a little bit to it each day, and then, you know, after about a month or so, you have something that's like a worthwhile weapon in raiding, and that's cool.
Yeah.
And if you're not a raider, I mean, it gives you something to do too.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like, I don't know, like at this point they're definitely probably going to be like 210 as far as like eye level goes, just because we have the 205 Thoradin weapons now, so it's definitely going to be something that people can do if they didn't finish Alexander 4 Savage, that they can get that in probably less time than it takes to do that fight, and you know, move on to the next tier.
Yeah, and what we've seen, thankfully, with patch 3.1 is kind of like a broadening of endgame activities that you can put your time towards each day. Whereas, you know, with 3.0 to 3.1, we had basically Alexander and EXDR, and I think I'm drawing a blank.
And I mean, a lot of the stuff that people could do after they finished the main scenario was, I would actually say, a little too samey from what we've had before, and people were disappointed in that, and I can totally understand that, because when I took a step back and looked at that, I was like, yeah, you know, these people are right. It would have been nice to see some of the stuff that we have now in 3.1, like right at the end of the expansion, but
yeah,
they just couldn't do it in time.
Yeah, I definitely think that the exploratory missions, the airship content, and thankfully it's quite accessible, I think that that's definitely something that they can expand on throughout this patch series.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, right now there's, as far as like the reward stuff goes, I think they have a lot of potential to add stuff in there that people will really be interested in getting.
Definitely. So
like right now, I think the biggest thing people are going for is there's a Pegasus mount, but
oh right, the one for the
you,
99 bronze.
Yeah,
oh.
But once you get that, it's like, oh well, you know.
Well, what exactly are like the best rewards you can get out of there, other than?
Well, right now the best thing is probably the grade 5 materia, which, you know, before that were really hard to get.
Mm-hmm. So, from my understanding, there's only Disciple of War Magic and I believe Crafting 5s you can get now. I'm not sure if Disciple of Gathering 5s are available. Maybe I have that backwards.
I didn't take a good look,
yeah,
but
I need to double check that.
Yeah, there are a lot of them in there that you can get.
So, have you had a chance to stop by Gold Saucer at all?
I did actually. Yesterday, I finally tried out the new game that they added, the Lord of Verminion.
So, for anyone who doesn't know, Lord of Verminion, it's based off another game. What game is that?
It is Lord of Vermilion, which is a arcade game in Japan that has never come over to America.
Yeah, and unfortunately, just because, you know, arcades are unfortunately kind of like a dying thing in America, and especially if you live out in the sticks like I do, you know, it's obviously not, you know, a very feasible option, possibly. But we do get a game within a game that's very much like Lord of Vermilion. And do you think, you know, it reminds me a lot of a MOBA.
Yeah, kinda. And also like a, you know, like a RTS.
Yeah, it's kind of like a fusion of a few different things, and it's definitely an interesting new game type. The biggest surprise I had is that I didn't expect it to be so featured. Like, I thought it would be kind of like a rock, paper, scissors thing. And there is that element.
I did too. Like, I thought I would just like pick what I wanted and then it would go. But no, you have to really plan out what you're doing.
Yeah, and so there's actually a bunch of challenges that you can take on single player to kind of get the hang of, you know, the game. But there's also multiplayer, competitive multiplayer, where you can be ranked, and there is an active tournament that's going. If it's not going on right now, it should be fairly soon.
It is. I actually registered it after I saw that they locked some minions behind it.
Yeah, I guess I'll definitely have to check that out after we're done here to make sure I'm registered, but I had a lot of fun with it, and this week I've been streaming patch 3.1, and I've been streaming a bit of Lord of Verminion, and man, I had to stop after a while because...
Is that like all you're doing?
Oh yeah. Well, not all I've been doing, but, you know, I could definitely see myself sucked into it.
Yeah, I mean, I've been working on the challenges, and I think the biggest takeaway for me is that playing it on a controller is actually really difficult.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, just because it's kind of clunky. So what I've been doing is sort of like a mouse, keyboard, and then controller hybrid setup, because I don't want to unplug my controller.
Right. Yeah.
And so, I mean, I get it to work, but I feel like it would have been nicer if the controller setup was a little more streamlined.
Yeah, and hopefully that's something that they can continue to work on as time goes on. I've only tried it with I've only tried it with like mouse and keyboard, so it did feel quite natural because, you know, a lot of, you know, like MOBAs or RTSs are, you know,
well, yeah,
kind of designed for mouse keyboard primarily. So what else do we have to talk about here? There are new Beast Tribe quests. But
yes.
Yeah,
well,
they're a little different.
Is there two or just the one?
It's just one.
Okay, I was gonna say I've only been doing the one, so if I miss the other one, then you know.
Yeah,
and I've actually been doing them this time. You know, after I was like, no.
Yeah, didn't you for the 2.x series? Didn't you put them off for quite a while?
I did, and I over time did do some of them, but I haven't like maxed the rank on any of them. But I think this new one might be the one that I do it with.
Yeah, I've managed to max the rank of all of the Beast Tribes from the patches, you know, as they released, and so...
Like, I feel like now that the Vanu give, you get a lot of reputation per quest, and I think that's helping my motivation a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I think,
Before, you know, it was not much at all, and so it took forever.
You basically had to work through the ranks and just, you know...
Yeah, and you're stuck doing, like, the same little pool of quests, and it got kind of soul-crushing, and that's why I didn't really do it.
Definitely. And so they've kind of learned their lesson in this respect. Like, I think there's a pool of quests that's quite large now, and it basically syncs to your level.
Yeah, I saw that, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, so, I mean, I have a lot of level 50 characters that I haven't leveled to 60 for Heavensward yet. And so what I think is nice about it is that I can actually go in there with my 50s, sync it down to 50, and earn some decent experience through it, while still earning reputation.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm kind of glad that there's more utility with Beast Tribe quests, especially if you're trying to get alternate classes up.
Yeah, I mean, you could do that stuff with the older ones too, sort of, but I mean, ultimately, with having to run around in the zones, it wasn't really worth it.
Yeah, with the flying, it definitely makes it a lot more easy to navigate and kind of pick and choose your targets.
I think now that you can run through the older, like, 48, 50 zones without getting like, instant aggro, I'm just gonna go back and finish the old ones. Like, I actually already started the Sahagin ones, but...
Yeah, it's probably much easier now since everything...
Oh, it is. You can just walk through and you're like, you know, no worries.
Oh, that's lovely. I might have to check that out then. Just to waltz through there for once and not get aggroed by anything. That'd be nice.
Yeah, because before, you know, it was super annoying. And that was one of the main reasons why I didn't want to do it.
Yeah, there were definitely a few grumbles in our Mumble channel about having to grind out dailies every day. But this time it seems a bit more lenient, and so
Yeah, I feel like they made it a little more worthwhile, and you can sort of see your progress advance a little more faster.
So that just about wraps up all of the major content for 3.1. I don't know if there's anything major that I'm missing just going by this trailer alone. Do you think there's any, well, we've had some quality of life updates to Final Fantasy XIV that I think are pretty neat, and one of which I'll show you right now. Let me just flip back to the game here since I've had the trailer on repeat for a while. This feature is called Idling Camera. And so what it does is it will pick random targets that are in your vicinity and kind of focus on them and switch back and forth. Kind of like a screensaver, but switching between points of interest. And this is, just to illustrate to you, one of the many quality of life features that they've added with this patch. And so,
I think my favorite is probably the group pose one, which is sort of like the idle camera, but it doesn't move around.
Yeah, and so that kind of allows you, I believe, it basically repeats the last emote that you did, and everyone faces the camera, so you can take a nice group pic while everyone's doing the same emote at the same time.
Yeah, which is nice because it's always been really hard to get a good picture with everybody like in that perfect position.
Yeah, I mean, imagine some of the Free Company screenshots we've taken in the past with just dozens of people there and barely anyone is visible or standing right or doing something wrong at the same time.
Or, they get covered up by a pet or...
Right. So, let's see, what else? They've added a feature where basically it will dim any sort of party member that's out of your range. Is it out of like ability range, or is it just out of like their
I'm
general
not sure,
range?
but I did see that like right after the patch. I was like, oh, that's different. But I'm not sure like what the proximity is.
Yeah. So, looking forward, we've got 3.2 probably coming out sometime towards the end of February, March, if the schedule holds up, which it seems like they're definitely heading towards that.
Yeah, and that's when, like, the next tier of everything is going to come out.
Yeah, I hope it's that, and I guess what I hope I'd like to see is a new Primal, perhaps the one that they hinted in that developers room holiday event kind of thing.
Oh, you mean
Starts with the D, ends with the train.
that guy?
Oh yeah, that guy's. It's been so long. Kind of wondering if we can get a reunion.
Yeah, I think if they put that in 3.2, people will be pretty happy.
So speaking of reunions, I think Hildebrand is definitely someone I'd like to see return as well.
Yeah, he is definitely, like, his absence is definitely noticeable.
But from what we've learned from the last live letter and some of the interviews that are coming out, I guess patch 3.15 has some story-related quests that'll come as well. And it has to do with some sort of school setting.
Not heard about that, so that's good to hear.
Yeah, it's, I don't know what they're going to frame it around, but it seems that, the title of it's called St. Endelim's Scholisticate. And there's a Scholisticate that's in Ishgard. And all we know about it so far is that it's some sort of a school setting. It's not going to be like a comedy setting, but like a school setting. And, they've been pretty quiet about it. So I'm kind of interested to see what's going on there. If it's going to be framed around some new content, or if it's just some sort of new storyline that...
Yeah, maybe something like the post-Google quest.
Yeah, that was definitely kind of a lot of the side content that they added in the 2.x series that, isn't major content, but, I mean, it's enjoyable nonetheless.
Oh, definitely. I feel like that sort of stuff that people kind of overlook is actually some of the better content in the game.
I really enjoyed doing a lot of the post-Moogle quests. And I'd like to see them add some more I guess, the rewards aren't that great, but they add a lot of depth to the story because they're often lore intensive and...
Yeah, oh, definitely. I mean, the rewards are kind of whatever, but, you know.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to see, okay, what exactly is going on here with this school setting kind of a quest. Alright, so... Oh, and if you haven't noticed, in the stream video, they've added a whopping 3 dances this patch.
Oh, and they added, like, a ton of new hairstyles, finally.
Oh, and did you see that you have new sit poses as well?
Yep, those have been a long time coming.
Yeah. And it's, it's all quite amazing to me because I'm a WoW veteran, and I ended up quitting in Cataclysm, which was, I believe, let's see, Burning Wrath, Cataclysm 3rd expansion. And for the longest time, people had been bugging them, hey, like, can we get, like, a dance studio where characters can learn, like, multiple dances? And they just didn't do it for years and years and years and years. The same with, like, housing. And then it's kind of funny to see that Final Fantasy, it's like, oh, new patch, here's 3 new dances for everyone.
Right? Or, it's funny to see something even newer, like, I think Destiny, like, I think you have to pay for emotes in that game, and I just kind of look at that, and I'm like, really?
Yeah,
I guess kind of excessive.
I guess it's part of their model, but, I couldn't see myself... I mean, it'd have to be a nice emote, and it'd have to be reasonably priced for me to kind of splurge on it.
I mean, there is the cash shop in 14, but most of it's just like out of date seasonal stuff or
character outfits.
Oh yes, character outfits. $15 character outfit.
Right, because if you want to look like Minfilia, you gotta pay up. She doesn't rent her likeness out easily.
Well, the other ones are only $8, so.
Is that the Minfilia Scion tax, maybe?
I guess.
Very strange, very strange. So, like, looking at 3.1 as a whole is kind of like, do you think 3.1 is a good kickoff to the patch series that's about to come?
I think it is. I actually thought the main scenario was a little more, it was a little more on course than like 2.1, for example. And I think they've sort of laid the groundwork here for a lot of stuff that can be expanded on pretty quickly with the new patches, so hopefully they do that.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree with you with the story too. It definitely feels like the main scenario was a little bit more focused, and I think that they've recognized some of the complaints, or, well, I don't want to say complaints, but some of the... God, what's a good word for it? I don't want to say concerns, because that sounds a bit weird. But, I mean, people definitely noticed that it kind of felt
maybe?
like... Yeah, concerns, I guess, but the Scions, it kind of felt like they didn't really know what to do with all of them, and... You know, a lot of people said, well, Minfilia, she just stands around. Like, all the Scions do stuff off camera. They don't really...
And they did. I mean, it's not wrong.
Yeah. I mean, I guess what people thought is that, these are these allies that you have. They don't really, while they may have interesting powers and stuff like that, they don't really act like heroes in a way. They just kind of do stuff in the background to help you. But I guess,
they do, and the game actually jokes about that. So
yeah, I mean, if there's anything that this game does well is poke fun of it itself, even if at some of its flaws. I had a laugh at the NPC in Idleshire who was apparently out of the job because you can no longer use him to fast travel out of the zone.
Oh yeah. I don't know why they got rid of that, but
Yeah, I don't know either, but I mean, you can ride mounts in Idleshire now, which is really cool. Also, just like Revenant's Toll, it's also getting progressively built.
Yeah, I saw that, which is pretty cool.
So I'm kind of curious, over the course of these patches, what's Idleshire going to look like when it's, I guess, complete?
Yeah, I mean, they built up Mordona, and then they kind of moved away from there, but I wonder if they'll, like, ever do anything to make people, like, go back there.
Yeah, it's kind of curious to see, I mean, there are some places in the Realm Reborn zones that they could definitely, take a look at and see if they could do more story stuff there. But definitely Revenant's Toll, wow, I mean, it started out as like an Aetheryte crystal, 2 buildings and like some tents, and then now it's like a huge city with like huge towers. And so,
Yeah, I mean, I remember the original Mordona, people standing around these, like, little tiny, basically, little outpost things, and it was just, that's all it was.
yeah, gosh, time really flies, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to believe.
So, kind of taking that topic into account, I know Final Fantasy XIV isn't exactly... It's not your first MMO, but it's the first one you've really gotten into.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I've tried other ones and
Just
played
really...
through some of other ones, but...
But 14 was the first one that really got you hooked?
Yeah, probably... Yeah, it definitely was, because I did play a bit of 11, and at the time when I played it, you couldn't really play it by yourself.
Yeah.
And that was actually a huge deal for me because, I mean, to have to play that game with other people, I thought was a really huge inconvenience. But 14 is like the complete opposite.
Yeah, 14 is definitely very accessible, and I think that it does a good job. I mean, there are some people that will look at the multiplayer aspect of it and just kind of, turn their brains off and be like, I can't handle it, I can't handle it. But,
yeah, and I do see that even, like, now, like, I'll be like, oh yeah, you should play because it's a really good Final Fantasy game, and they're like, oh, but it's an MMO and it's not a real Final Fantasy, but they're wrong. It's actually one of the best ones, I'd say.
So, as someone who probably didn't really dig a lot of MMOs before 14, that probably gravitated more towards single-player Final Fantasies, and right now you're doing the highest end content, you're rating an Alex Savage, you're doing Thornton EX, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So, how did you get past that barrier of, I want to be able to play with other people, or, did you have that block at all? Were you intimidated by playing with other people?
Not really. I think part of it was because, like, the GAF community was really big, and there's a lot of people just, like, willing to play with other people. Even if they were already level 50, there were still a lot of people who were willing to go and take through the lower level dungeons and stuff, which was really nice.
Yeah.
And I think the sense of, like, already having a large community was definitely a big help.
Gosh, I think you mentioned this to me before, but I think it was patch 2.0 or shortly after. We had a few people in our free company ask us to do the first turn of the Binding Coil of Bahamut. And you probably remember a few of those people that went with us.
Yeah. Well, I remember those people asking, and I was like, "What's coil?" I thought it was just this thing that you do, and I had no idea. Like, I didn't even know about the lockouts or any of that.
Mm-hmm. But after you kind of got your teeth sunk into Binding Coil, we all had ups and downs, I guess. We had a lot of struggles with trying to get past some of the turns because, it had been a while since I had done any raiding, and, this was the first time you were doing any, like, really, really intense raiding.
Like, the entire concept was basically brand new for me, so,
Yeah. And so, as someone who goes from brand new to raiding to, like, almost doing it every night, like, what's the biggest draw to it, like, that has you coming back every night wanting to get that clear?
Well, I think the biggest thing is just the fights are typically really fun to learn, and getting to, getting through the fight and finally clearing it, like, just the feeling of accomplishment is just really great, and being able to do that with people you know as well.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the most satisfying things, you can do in an MMO.
And I mean, the fights, like the raid stuff, like the high-end raid, they're not really easy, and it takes a decent amount of time to get through them. So, like, putting in the work, you definitely feel the reward once you do complete it.
I think with Final Fantasy XIV, especially compared to previous MMOs I've played, is that there's definitely a lot it requires out of you. It requires you to number one, come prepared. Number two,
Yeah.
stay alert. And number three, to just stay cool and just, realize that, if you make a mistake, it's not the end of the world. And, if you make a mistake, you gotta fess up to it and say, hey, this is what I'm doing wrong, and just, you gotta reassess sometimes, even if you get a little bit egotistical. And I definitely get a little bit too ego sometimes, because once you think you get as good as you think you're gonna be, there's always a little bit more that you can improve on.
Oh, definitely.
So with that said, let's see, we've covered quite big variety of topics, and I'm looking for just a few more things that we can touch on before we go. So, how about I ask chat? Do you guys have any major comments about 3.1? Like, what have you guys thought so far?
I'm interested to see this because, like we said earlier, there's been, some people whining about certain things, and
yeah, I mean, there at least,
honestly, I think, and it's funny because the people that I did see whining, they basically woke up super early to play the patch, and then they rushed to do all the content. It's like, well, I mean, no wonder you're bored. You could have spaced out what you were doing and not done it all at once.
Yeah, I think there's a very small amount of people that, that play like you described. They get everything done maybe in the first couple days. They stream through it as fast as they can because they want to be able to, have maybe the best gear to go into like the latest content. And they probably realized that not too long after that they've kind of run out of stuff to do.
Yeah, and then they start complaining even though it's basically their fault. So
yeah, and I think, there's only a certain, I mean, they could design a metric ton of content per patch, and people would try to blow through it as fast as they can. And so I think that, no matter what, I think there's definitely going to be a small minority of people who, they get through.
They always
and,
complain.
Yeah, and that's not going to go away. It's just going to be
yeah,
part of life.
I mean, that it is what it is, but still, I don't think it's really like the general consensus, because you have to remember the people that are happy are usually the ones that aren't really going to say, oh yeah, I'm happy about this. That's
definitely true. So, and it's kind of interesting because, both me and you, we go from patch to patch. We pretty much have done all of the content as patches hit. And, I have a few friends right now that are actually playing through the main scenario right now, and they've only started playing maybe a couple months ago. And so they have a little tiny static party, leveling static, that they are going through, and they're currently at about patch 2.1, and they've been doing it for
oh wow
about 3 or 4 months now, I think, playing casually. And so, if I had any advice for anyone who was starting Final Fantasy XIV, I would just say, you know what, just go at your own pace. There is literally at least 200 hours of story between the start of A Realm Reborn and right now. At least 200. And that's just going through the main story alone. Maybe you'll get through that quicker, and maybe you'll get through that longer. It's hard to say. Everyone kind of has their own flow or pace and amount of time that they're able to put towards an MMO, but that's my biggest advice, is just enjoy all the content as it comes, and don't be so preoccupied with getting to endgame, because it is true that endgame, the way it's designed is to kind of keep you around for a while, and so that does involve doing a lot of repetitive tasks. Like maybe you'll need to collect tomestones, or maybe you'll need to do a certain amount of exploratory missions or what have you. But definitely make endgame, I would just say, your mileage is going to vary, but don't push yourself too much to just be on top of everything to the point where you're crying blood or anything like that. Because, if there's anything I've noticed that people get burnt out on, is that when they just force themselves to go through things and to get to a certain point.
Yeah, I agree. And, people do that, and then like, oh, I don't want to play anymore.
Yeah, the blue color in chat brings up a very good point. It's about making your own fun. And in Final Fantasy XIV, there is a ton of different things that you can do to have fun. Like, I spent an entire day once just doing chocobo races because, that's all I wanted to do. Like, maybe I didn't want to raid that day. And sometimes, you definitely gotta make your own fun out of it. Whether that's maybe, and luckily in 14, you can do that solo, or you can do that in a group or a raid or an alliance. So there's definitely a lot of things to choose from. But there's definitely a lot of that peer pressure that can make you think that, oh, I'm falling behind, or oh, I need to add this, or get this achievement, or get this amount of stuff. And I would just say get rid of that keeping up with the Joneses attitude, and just enjoy it for what you want to do.
Yeah, I mean, the game's going to be around for a long time, and luckily there's a decent amount of time between updates, so it's not like you have to rush out and do everything at once.
So, did you take any amount of time off between 3.0 and 3.1?
Me?
Yeah.
No, not really. I mean, there was some weeks where I didn't log on for like a few days at a time, but...
Yeah, and considering the what you were doing, I mean, your group was trying to bang out A3S and A4S, which
right.
is...
I mean, we're still working on 4. We actually had to replace somebody, and then we decided, since we were so close to the new patch with the new weapons, that we were just gonna get that. But right now, a couple of more people need to get their weapon, and then we can go back in. So. Yeah.
So, Magrider asks, do you guys know what the population is like for older leveling content?
I think it's still pretty decent, actually, because, like, when I'm actually trying to level my Scholar and White Mage, and whenever I queue up for, like, the roulette, it puts me in really low-level dungeons. So, yeah. I mean, that's definitely a thing.
I think either way you're still going to have a pretty long wait in Duty Finder if, maybe you're leveling a DPS for the first time. And obviously that all amounts to the amount of people queuing at a certain time each day.
Right, there are definitely peak times. Like, definitely. If you go in early in the morning, like Eastern time, you're probably going to wait a while.
Since there are a lot of people that are either at work or school or sleeping in.
Right. Same thing goes with like really late at night. It's not going to happen.
So peak time, I guess I would say for Ultra's server, which is a North American centric server, I'd say probably like, well, just around this time is peak time.
Yeah, like from maybe like 7 Eastern, and then through
the later hours as people. Yeah. Are done with their daily stuff. So, Omega brings up a point, Final Fantasy XIV, even since 1.0, has been a subscription-only game. Do you think that there's any reason for them at all to change that?
No, and even though people complain about that, like, that's like the main thing that I see is, people don't want to pay for it. But I think having that there, like having the subscription, is what allows for the quality of content that we've been getting.
Yeah, as far as I know, Square Enix is not gonna in any time soon, and especially since Yoshida has kind of made comments about this before, I don't think that free-to-play is coming anytime soon.
No, I mean, even Final Fantasy XI isn't free to play, and that game's how old now? And
13 years.
As far as we know, they have no plans to ever change that, even though the game's basically ending.
Yeah, and actually, that actually brings up another topic, and actually, we'll get to it after I ask another question here. So, Omega also asks, are y'all enjoying the content so far? Is it enough, or should it include more story-based quests to thin it out until the expansion pack? So do you feel that each patch has enough content?
I think so. I mean, the 2.x series was really good, and I feel like toward the latter, like 2.4 and 5, they really ramped it up.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of when we saw the story kind of ramping up to
the story, plus they added a new job, and they had some new, they had Gold Saucer and the new primals. So, I mean, they added a lot toward the end.
So speaking of that, let's do a little bit of a wish list. So version 4.0. They said that we can expect new expansions to be about a year and a half after the previous one, based on the patch schedule and so on. So I'm assuming that, the next expansion, version 4.0, should be sometime in 2017?
That, or like maybe the beginning, like early 2017, or if we're super lucky, the end of 2016. But that might be like super wishful thinking.
Yeah. So, let's see, version 4.0. And, they've actually gone out of their way to hint a lot of stuff, especially if you participated in that developers room event that was held for the 2nd anniversary. So they hinted a few possible new jobs, and I just want to say, if you had to pick one job that you would really want to play as that hasn't been featured in the game already, what would it be?
Probably Red Mage, or like an actual ranger.
And do you think that they could still do like a ranger spec?
Oh, definitely. Like if they took Bard or Archer and didn't add any support at all to it, they could do Ranger.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely...
Just make it like a pure DPS class and make it on par with like a caster sort of DPS.
Yeah, it's going to be kind of interesting to see what they do with classes like Red Mage because, they need to fall into the trinity of roles, tank, DPS, or healer, but we haven't really had any truly hybrid roles yet.
No, I mean, they do have the support stuff with like Bard, and I guess Ninja has some support now, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to balance that paradigm going forward.
Yeah, I mean, they hinted at what, Red Mage and Samurai?
They hinted, I think Red Mage, Blue Mage, possibly Samurai, although Yoshi said something about only having one Eastern themed job, but we'll see.
Well, I think what he said about that was he didn't want to have them like added in like quick succession or anything. That's why it was Dark Knight instead of Samurai.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense.
So I think if they do add it, it'll be in 4.0 and it'll be a tank.
Yeah, I wonder how people will think about a Samurai tank. People were a little bit crazy about Dark Knight being a tank.
Dark Knight, yeah, they're like, oh, it should have been a DPS, blah blah blah, and then it wasn't.
Yeah, and now it's kind of like everyone has accepted that Dark Knight is now the third tank.
Yeah, pretty much.
So how do you feel about your class right now? You main Bard still, am I right?
Yes, I do.
And so, Bards have had quite a little bit of a bumpy ride the last couple months.
Uh,
how would you
well,
describe?
if I'd say actually the biggest thing that I've noticed is there are a lot less bards around.
So I'm assuming that has a lot to do with Wanderer's Minuet.
Probably. Basically, they turned us into casters, which is really stupid in my opinion. Because
So
now, if you want to play a DPS, your options are either melee or caster, and that's it.
do you feel that being stationary during Wanderer's Minuet just totally... Does it add like another level of difficulty to the execution, or is it just not giving the output as it did before?
Honestly, like the biggest problem is that Wanderer's Minuet is basically just like the Bard's version of Gauss Barrel for Machinists, and they designed that class around that, and it actually works really well for that class because the different actions that they do work really well with it, but for Bard, they just kind of slapped it in without changing too much of everything else, so the rotation itself is just really clunky, and it's just not good.
Yeah, I've been kind of feeling a little bit, it's hard to say because, I don't do much raiding now because, I have a new job and, like, there are other projects that I want to work on and so on, so I haven't been doing too much Alexander recently, but I understand that Paladin's kind of got it rough right now.
It depends. I would actually say that Paladin has a bit of an advantage in A2 and maybe A3 to an extent because of Hollowed. But definitely, I feel like a lot of people have said don't bring a Paladin to A4
Why do you think they say that?
because Dark Knight does more damage.
So that fight, and I've seen a couple of videos of it, I mean, that is definitely a DPS race, for sure.
Yeah, it is. Like, it is to the point where your progression is held back if you don't meet the DPS checks. And it's not like a typical DPS check, where you wipe if you don't meet it or whatever. It's one where you get an extra ad or something if you're not fast enough.
Yeah, definitely tough, because, as a paladin, we have shield death and our damage is just awful in exchange for, having increased enmity and basically, being able to really put a lot of threat up really quick.
Right. Well, in A4 as well, there's also like no physical damage, so it's really bad for Paladin.
Mm-hmm. And so Dark Knights are better equipped for that because they are kind of like the magic defense, or say that they're like the magic defense equivalent of Paladin?
Yeah, pretty much. Like, they're definitely better at it. I've not played the class myself, so I can't really comment. But yeah.
Paladin is probably the most newbie friendly. Probably the easiest to learn.
Yeah, it is like the easiest one to play.
Yeah, there's definitely been a fair share of jokes about the 1, 2, 3 class going around. So, I mean, I don't want to say it's unjustified because Paladin is quite easy to play. But what's nice about it is that because it's easy to play, it kind of allows you to ease into the mechanics of a fight a bit more and to kind of help you figure out things a little bit easier.
Yeah, the first class I actually had was Paladin, so
yeah, what level are they now?
I mean, I have a 50 Paladin, but I don't know if I want to level it up to 60 yet.
So chat's talking about, the next expansion, already thinking about the next expansion. I'm sure if Yoshi P was listening to this, he'd probably be like rolling his eyes like, oh, they're already thinking about the next expansion. I'm so tired. When am I gonna get a break? When will Square give me a break?
No.
It's kind of funny because they did give him some short time off, but he spent all of it playing Final Fantasy XIV.
Yeah.
So, I guess the guy's really dedicated, so I don't know if that's what he wants to do with this time off. I'm not gonna hold it against him.
Yeah, I mean, it is a fun game. so I don't really blame him. But I mean, it's actually good that he plays his own game, because you see a lot of developers that don't play games, and then you wonder what they're doing.
Especially with a game like this, when it's a game that's like a service, because you're paying monthly, you're paying that subscription. It's important for them to understand the base experience that people are getting. And so if you actively play the game, then you know what people are going through. So I feel that, I guess Final Fantasy XIV, compared to like single-player entries, they definitely have to consider feedback in a different way, whereas Final Fantasy XIV has to consider keeping a base of users around, and shaping features and so on around what their audience wants. Maybe a single-player Final Fantasy, like maybe Final Fantasy XV, for example, they probably don't have to rely on feedback as much, or maybe shouldn't, because ultimately, what's going to be in that final product is going to be it.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. I mean, they can release DLC and patches, of course, but I mean, there's only so much that they can do there.
Right, and you've seen probably a lot of talk about all that already, but not to get too sidetracked here with Final Fantasy 15, because we want to do a show on that soon. I don't know how soon, but there's definitely a lot to talk about with Final Fantasy 15 and other Final Fantasy and Square Enix things too. So I think we're going to kind of bring things to a close here. Chat, if you guys have any questions about Final Fantasy 14, about the new patch, lay it on us. We are definitely here to answer all of your questions, and we're curious about what you guys have to think and say. So while we're waiting for chat to kind of figure out what they want to say, I just want to say that we're going to continue to stream Final Fantasy XIV's new patch throughout next week. We've been streaming a lot of different games on the channel. You probably noticed that before the patch I was playing Final Fantasy X-2 HD Remaster. The plan is to do more 3.1, but we do want to get back to that eventually and finish that game.
And we even had, Tomb Raider on here the other day?
Yep. Brian's been streaming Rise of the Tomb Raider all week. And so hopefully he's able to figure out how to get past this game-breaking bug that he encountered where he can't progress.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. I feel bad for him.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably one of those games that you could just kind of restart and, just hopefully you'll not encounter that again, but we'll see what happens. Magrider asks, favorite dungeon out of any of them in the game and why? Do you have anyone that sticks out to you? I mean, I'm already thinking I have a ton that stick out to me, and I don't think I could pick a favorite, but do you have one?
I mean, if this counts as a dungeon, can it count as a dungeon? Like, I don't know, I really love Coil, more than anything in this game.
Yeah. So, Coil, I mean, if you don't know what Coil is the group of raids, the 8-man raids from A Realm Reborn. And, basically they released 3 tiers of it over the 2.x series. And, it was the Binding Coil of Bahamut, the second Coil of Bahamut, and the final Coil of Bahamut. And that basically wrapped up the story around Bahamut and what happened after the cinematic, that huge 7-minute cinematic for A Realm Reborn that got released all those years ago now.
Yeah, it's I don't know, it's so, I feel like everything that they did with that, with all 3 tiers, and the story, and just the way everything looked was so cool. And then they had that huge payoff in the Heavensward main scenario with it. I was like, oh.
Well, I know you've mentioned to me in passing that, you felt Alexander's story was a bit lacking. And to me it seems like it's kind of like a different mood and feel, and of course Alexander didn't have a 7-minute CG trailer to preface
No.
it. But where do you think that the Alexander story is going? It's hard to say.
It's hard to say. I feel like at the end of first coil, we knew a lot more of what was going on, just because of there was that end cutscene that shows you that Bahamut's being regenerated, and then two certain characters were actually quote unquote not dead.
Hmm.
So there was a little more mystery and excitement going into second coil with knowing that. With Alexander, we're just like, oh, there's like what's going on and where are they going to take it from where we left off. So I think there's not as much mystery as far as like exciting mystery, but I don't know. It could go either way, I suppose.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things we'll have to keep an eye on because I'm curious to see where it's going. As far as let's see, Omega's asking question: is the final boss in the expansion? Did it meet all of your expectations? So I don't know. I don't want to spoil it for y'all, but did it meet your expectations, Aaron?
I was surprised. I did not expect it at all. Like when he started to do a certain ability, I was like, nah.
Yeah, it's
like it's a pure fan service fight, but it's so good.
Yeah, and I think it's done so well that, and I feel like the characters that are established around it are done well enough where that when that happens, it's not like, oh, this is just a cheap
even
fan
though
service.
it's fan service, like they wove it into the actual story in
Yeah.
a way that was believable.
Yeah, I felt that they really did an interesting job with gosh, I can't even say it, but you guys probably know what I'm talking about if you saw the trailer.
Yeah.
So, Jumpy Stranger says Alexander is bad. Do you think it's bad? Do you think the story is bad?
Well, I mean, I don't know. There's just not the same excitement as there was with Coil.
Yeah.
Coil was so good. I was really excited to do it too. But Alexander, honestly, I feel like they really killed people's motivation by making 3 and 4 so difficult.
Now that's a good point because, it seemed during Coil, we had a lot of people say, Coil's great and all, but, we could do something that's harder. And so they added, like, the second Coil of Bahamut had a Savage mode that they added later on. And that's kind of...
Yeah, they did. And it was pretty difficult. Even, like, by the time I did it, I had better gear, obviously, than when it had come out, but it was still pretty difficult. You could one-shot everybody. But, yeah, like you said, people were saying that they wanted a more difficult raid and this and that, but I think they might have gone a little too high with Alexander.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel that Coil was kind of like an ideal level of difficulty? And if so, what about the people who think it was, or who wanted more, basically? What do you think that they should take away from all of this?
Honestly, I feel like the perfect one was probably second Coil in terms of like difficulty and how fast people were able to clear it. Because if you remember, Turn 9 wasn't cleared until like 3 weeks after, 3 or 4 weeks after it came out. So I feel like that was a good amount of time, but it wasn't hard to the point that other people were struggling to clear it, and groups weren't breaking up, and people weren't quitting the game.
Yeah.
Final Coil was definitely a lot easier, just because by the time it'd come around, they had taken a lot of existing mechanics and thrown them into those fights. So people were able to get through them a lot quickly, but at the same time, I don't think that's a bad thing either, because at least people were able to clear.
True. So, Omega asks, here's another question: which Final Fantasy mainline game influences do you see in Final Fantasy XIV? I see Final Fantasy XII in terms of the Garlean and Arcadian Empire. So,
Yeah, 12. I'd say 12 is like the biggest one, just because a lot of staff who worked on 12 actually work on this game.
yeah, we've got...
and you can definitely tell. Like, even the UI is from the guy who worked on Final Fantasy 12.
I believe that's Hiroshi Minagawa, who did the UI.
Um, yeah, definitely the biggest one is 12. Maybe some 11.
Yeah, and you know the whole Empire thing too. That's kind of been, gosh, that's been kind of like a Final Fantasy kind of a thing forever. I mean, I believe the first
Yeah.
Final Fantasy that used kind of like the whole Empire and Rebels thing was Final Fantasy II. And funny thing about that, a lot of it was inspired by Star Wars. And there's definitely a lot of Star Wars fans at Square, for sure. And you can see that reflected in, you know, the characters in the series, like Biggs and Wedge.
Biggs and Wedge and 14 are actually really cool.
Yeah. So, it's definitely cool to see, like, you know, the fan service be tastefully done, I think. You know, and fan service is kind of like, it's one of those topics that does come up with 14 a lot. I know there are people that, you know, there are not many people that think this, but they definitely bring up an interesting point. Like, at what point does the series fan service go too far? Like, what's appropriate and like what's not?
Well, I guess the most recent example of fan service in the game was that FF11 event. I actually really liked it. It caught me by surprise, actually. I was like, oh, it's so good.
Yeah, you know, and you know, I had actually made a note to myself during the stream that we needed to talk about this, but as of right now, there is a Final Fantasy XI crossover event in Final Fantasy XIV. And so, during this event, there is a little storyline that plays out. And it has a lot to do with, I guess, the world of Final Fantasy XI, and I guess it's kind of a send-off to 11 in 14.
Yeah,
And,
it is, and I think that's why I really liked it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's ending.
It's kind of crazy, though. I mean, you know, the last time I played Final Fantasy XI seriously was years and years ago, but this event, like, the final cutscene of it just, you know, I was getting misty, man, like, all those memories, man, and, you know, it's been quite a while, but still, like, really comes back to you, and it really goes to show you that, you know, Square put so much effort into that game, and the community, just remembering all the people that I knew from way back then, you know, getting up at 3 or 4 in the morning to mess around with the notorious monsters, and oh god, like, just running around the cities again, and god, you know, it's interesting because it's 13 years, and like, you know, it's uncertain, like, where the game will be now. I mean, they're gonna keep the servers on, but, you know, to a certain point, and I think after that, then it'll be up to the community through the use of maybe private servers to keep the game going, and, you know, at that point it kind of becomes no man's land, like, you know, how will the game be preserved? So I think that's going to be kind of an interesting thing to watch in the future, is, you know, how will fans and Square Enix alike choose to remember Final Fantasy XI. And it'll be kind of interesting to see how that all plays out. Maybe I'm being a little bit sentimental, but why not, right?
Yeah, I mean, as far as, like, the fan service, the original question about the fan service going too far goes, honestly, the one that probably made the least sense was that lightning event.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, they just kind of slapped her in here, and I don't know. It
really didn't make any sense at all. Like,
yeah.
You know, even the story felt a little bit, you know, like they were trying to say, oh, we'll figure out a way to make it work, and it just
and they really didn't.
But, you know, it's kind of funny because you can really take it or leave it, because the lightning event is not persistent in that, you know, there's only a small window of time that it's actually in the game. And I can't remember the last time they brought it back.
It was for the first, like, the 1-year anniversary, but they didn't do it again for the 2-year.
Yeah, which I thought was interesting. They didn't do the 11 one either, the previous 11 one with the Shantoto. So
yeah.
It's kind of
well, the 11 stuff, they did a lot better job of, like, tying it in.
Yeah. So, as of this point, think we're hitting our... I think it's been about an hour and a half since we've started, a little bit under actually. So we don't want to keep this going on too long. I kind of want to keep it under 2 hours so we don't get too wordy and start repeating the same things over and over. But
yeah.
And you know, maybe we've repeated some things, but you know, oh well, we'll refine it for next time. But I just want to say, definitely send us your feedback about the show tonight. You know, we want to keep this going. If you missed it at the start of the show, we wanted to be able to get Mike in here, but he is actually a bit preoccupied at the moment, and we wanted to get a show out for 3.1 so that we'd have something to talk about that was timely with you guys. And you know, our schedules are a little bit more busy, but we still want to do this. We still want to do these live shows because they're pretty fun to do, and I'm pretty excited to test out this new setup. If you guys have noticed, we've got like the videos that we've been playing during the over the game stream, and then we have our little logo and information down in the bottom right or bottom left, which was a lot of fun to make. But if you guys have, you know, more suggestions, I know that there may be some audio problems, like there may be a lot of static right now. Definitely hit me up and let me know your thoughts and let me know your feedback, and I will definitely try to make it a bit more streamlined for next time, a little bit more professional. But, you know, we also want to keep it a little bit relaxed because that's just how I think that the show should continue. Nothing too serious.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. And we're at least on the video side, I think it's gotten a lot better, so...
Yeah, and I'm actually thrilled because I do have a new rig that I built just last month, and I'm very happy that this is kind of a reality now, that I can actually take this on myself and kind of fine-tune it and tweak it, and we'll make it a pretty good show. So in the future, we want to be able to talk more about some other games. I know there's been developments with Final Fantasy 15. We have the City of Final Fantasy. We have
Nier.
Eventually, Nier, new Nier game. Final Fantasy 7 Remake is probably gonna have some new stuff coming up sometime soon this winter.
Hopefully.
So,
Hopefully.
Definitely that. So, if there's nothing left, I think we will go ahead and end our first episode of the new show. I guess we'll call it the new show, but...
It's similar but different.
A little bit similar. See, about 10 minutes before we went live, Aaron made the suggestion, you know, we were called Please Look Forward to It before, but I think it should be shorter. I think it should be more catchy. It should roll off the tongue, right?
Yeah.
So now we're looking forward to it.
Yes.
So definitely be looking forward to our next episode. Mag Rider and maybe Final Fantasy Explorers when it comes out over here. We'll definitely talk about it. We'll see, you know, what the situation is as far as streaming is. I have no idea how to stream 3DS games, so
neither do I, to be honest. I don't have a device or anything, and I know you don't. So.
No, yeah. I mean, we'll definitely have a chat about it.
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely get a review copy at least, hopefully.
Yeah. So we'll get that squared away. And let's see, do we have any final questions for us tonight? And tell Erin how we destroyed Shinra in only 1 try, 7 turns. Well, I already linked her the video about 7 times, so she knows about it.
Nothing's as good as my one-hit Dark Veil 4 video.
Oh man, that's definitely a classic. Alright, so thanks you guys for watching, and you know, let us know Twitter, social media, let us know on the site. We also have a new PlayStation 4 community, Nova Crystallis, that you can join. I'll definitely go and look at that after we get done here and accept any new people, since I think there was one person who said that they just applied. Definitely check that out. So with that, we're gonna wrap. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good night.
We'll see ya.